You want the best for your child. K-12 can help them gain the skills they need to reach their full potential while giving you the support you need to get them there. K-12-powered schools are tuition-free, accredited online public schools for students in kindergarten through 12th grade. Their state-certified teachers make online learning interactive and engaging, allowing your child to learn at their pace from the safety of home. Join the more than 3 million families who've chosen K-12. Go to k12.com/podcast today to learn more. That's k12.com/podcast.
Thomas and Sammy are going to subject the listener to an hour on Vanessa Bayer, whether they like it or not.
That's a great episode. I have a fond memory of listening to that on a train ride through Scotland.
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. We're Gary Seith and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week, Brad, on my SNL story, we have something different.
A little different, I agree.
We are talking about the beauty of the SNL Hall of Fame podcast.
Yes, sadly coming to the end of its run. We reached out to JD and the gang, and we thought, who better to tell their SNL story than these guys who've been podcasting about the show for the last few years. Gary and I are both huge fans of the show. We reference it many times. We've had Thomas Sena on the show a bunch. We've had Bill Kenney join with us. We've been on their show many times. And I don't know if we've told this story, but the SNL Hall of Fame podcast really is the inspiration for us doing our show. When I first found this show a few years ago, I think I found it near the end of season 1 or season 2, beginning of season 2. And I don't know, I actually emailed JD, which I had never corresponded to any podcast I ever listened to, but I was so into it. I was like, this is amazing. I love it. I think I complained because John Belushi wasn't on the ballot. But I was excited to find out that people were actually talking about old school SNL, and there was an audience for this. And it got me back into thinking about the show and enjoying the show and how much I love the show. And so personally, I've got to say thank you to all you guys, and we'll announce who's here in a minute, but I just got to say thank you to the podcast because, they're really what kind of pushed me to then make Gary do our show.
So I'm coming at this from a different angle. I have a bone to pick with all of you. No, I'm just kidding. Brad, why don't you actually, since you led up to it, tell everybody who's joined us today.
So JD is with us, the creator of the SNL Hall of Fame and hosted the first season. We have Thomas Sena with us, who took over hosting duties of the show, seasons 2 through season 6. And last but certainly not least, Bill Kenney is with us, who is the host for the current and final season 7. So we've got all three guys with us. Thank you guys so much for coming. This is so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you
Gary.
so much.
Yeah, that means a lot, Brad. And truly, before we even corresponded and before I even came on your show and talked to you guys, I was a big fan of the Not Ready for Primetime podcast, which is now the Not Ready for Primetime Project. I was a listener, and I'm like, this is so cool. We got these two guys breaking down these episodes from the original era, and I was just right up my wheelhouse. So I was a listener, and then I sort of weaseled my way onto the show. So
you did. It's JD's fault. Season 1, I don't know if you remember JD. Yeah. I had emailed JD to be a guest on our show. And he wasn't he was I don't know, maybe, I don't know. He's like, you should call, do you know Thomas Sena? He's been on the show a few times. I'm like, yeah, I know Thomas. He's like, you should contact Thomas. He'd probably love to do it. And now we can't get rid of you.
It's JD's fault.
I'll explain why I turned down the opportunity or pivoted on the opportunity when we get into the history of the SNL Hall of Fame.
All right.
I'll give you that little tease.
Well, we like to start every one of our SNL story shows with the same question for everyone. So I'll ask you, and maybe we could just kind of go in an order with JD, you going first, and then Thomas, and then Bill. When did you first hear of Saturday Night Live?
Would have been the schoolyard for sure. Certainly it was, I saw episodes of the, infamous season 11, but it wasn't until, it wasn't until maybe a year or so after that I became a regular. The episode that sealed the deal for me was Robert Mitchum for some reason, whatever season that was. There's this Mountain Man, the Sweeney Sisters, who me and my bestie memorized and would perform that at the park at night, in front of 3 or 4 people, but they would watch and they would laugh, and we felt overjoyed that this show was speaking our language.
How about you, Thomas?
Yeah, it's actually something that my mom and I really share and bonded with, and she introduced it to me when I was a really little kid, like probably 6, 7 years old. I remember her introducing me to like Gilda Radner. We would watch reruns wherever they were showing reruns in syndication by the late 80s or so. We would watch that. But my mom was a real big comedy fan. Her favorite, like I said, was Gilda Radner. She actually showed me The Jerk too. That's what a cool mom she was when I was like 6 or 7.
Mom.
She made sure that I watched The Jerk and was introduced to that stuff. So my mom kind of ushered in SNL to me. I first remember the first live episode that I remember sitting down to watch was the Kyle MacLachlan episode. There's actually Chris Farley's first season on the cast. So they did this. I remember them doing a Sprockets sketch. I remember them doing this fun Twin Peaks sketch. They made the fun of the fact that they didn't have enough female cast members and Jan had to do all the parts and stuff. So for some reason, I remember watching that live as it was happening. And then I think they would show like Kids in the Hall afterward. I think that's when NBC was kind of showing Kids in the Hall after SNL. But I was really young. I think I was like 8 or 9 when that episode aired. So I got into it super, super young.
That's awesome. And Bill, how about you?
Well, I heard SNL before I saw SNL. So I don't know if you guys remember Dr. Demento,
Sure.
which was an incredible comedy show. Sunday nights, it was a syndicated radio show. It was 3 or 4 hours of just nonstop stand-up and comedic beats. And I know that I had heard of Fernando and Willie and Frankie. They'd play little clips. And, of course, Eddie Murphy, they'd play clips of him as well. But I came in, I've said this a couple of times before, but my origin story for watching it was the summer of '86. My dad sat down with me and we watched original episodes on PBS, which sounds crazy, but it was uncut. It was the hour and a half, and I was obsessed. So he let me start watching that fall, and my first episode was Sigourney Weaver and the Second Golden Era and all that. So I came in right at the right time. I've joked that if I came in one season earlier, I wouldn't be a super fan, but obviously that's tongue in cheek. But that's where I began and haven't missed a live episode since.
So let's just run through again for the uninitiated. Let's just run through who you actually have inducted into the SNL Hall of Fame. I'm just going to roll through these names real quick just to get a sense of who we've got here. So
Great.
Lorne Michaels got in without needing a vote. That's fine. We don't need to talk about these things. I'll just roll through.
That's
it. So
fine.
The first season you had.
You're like, that's fine. No vote. Sure.
Are we going to get through this, Brad? Or are you going to keep interrupting everyone?
Every other
Season 1, we have Eddie Murphy, Steve Martin, Tina Fey, Gilda Radner, Phil Hartman, Dan Aykroyd, and Chris Farley. Season 2, Will Ferrell, Bill Hader, Kristen Wiig, Tom Hanks, Mike Myers, Norm Macdonald, Alec Baldwin, and Seth Meyers. I should note Seth Meyers and Tina Fey both went in as writers those first 2 years. Season 3, Dana Carvey, Amy Poehler, Bill Murray, John Belushi, The Lonely Island, also as writer, John Goodman, Conan O'Brien, Christopher Walken, Paul Simon, Robert Smigel, Jane Curtin. Season 4, Jason Sudeikis, Jim Downey, Jan Hooks, Daryl Hammond, and Don Pardo got a special Don Pardo award. Season 5, Maya Rudolph, Molly Shannon, Franken and Davis. And Season 6, Will Forte, Adam Sandler, Kate McKinnon, Jack Handy, and Buck Henry. And that's where we're at as of this moment.
Cream of the crop.
That's a really solid
There's only one that I would take issue with. I think that was a pretty good job of the voters. There's only one that I was kind of, when they got voted in, I was like, oh man, really? And it's not Paul Simon, Gary.
That's because I understand that I'm,
who is it?
In the minority with that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think Conan O'Brien was kind of the weird one for me.
Name recognition
in that whole group. It was like, Yeah, it was name recognition, and we halfway expected that because JD and I would talk kind of behind the scenes, like, "Hey, where do you think this is going to go? What do you?" And we were both kind of bracing ourselves. We were like, "You know what, Conan might get in," and yeah, I mean, he was fun to talk about, but that was one where it was definitely like name recognition, I think.
Oh, for sure. And that was also, I don't know if you remember, we called that like the Bizarro season, like where like so many people got in. It was such a big class, and we had more voters than we had any other year. And that was the first year we didn't require like an email. So I think, the box was stuffed for a few people. That was
the juice ball season.
Yeah.
So JD, let's go back. Like I said, I discovered your show a little late. I think it was probably even the start of season 2. So I was playing catch up. I did go back and listened in order through season 1 before I caught up live into season 2. I actually remember, I think after season 2 being upset that I had to then wait for the 3rd season because I had done 2 seasons, binged in a row. So take us back. How did you come up for the idea of the show, and when was that, and how did it all come about?
Sure. 2000, believe it or not, it was like the fall of 2019 that I sort of started doing some production work, like some pre-production work. And it was doing research, going through the charts, seeing what other SNL podcasts there were and what their angle was. And at the time, there wasn't much. John Murray had the SNL After Party, and John Schneider was just beginning SNL Stats. And so I ping-ponged off both of those two in terms of getting ideas, and sort of just spitballing, really. And then one night it just sort of hit me. These people are talking about SNL in a way that I've never talked about it before. And this is in particular John Schneider. They're talking about it like a sport. And I immediately thought, well, there has to be a Hall of Fame then. There has to be. There's dozens of people that have graced that stage, but there are a few that stand above. And they are the Hall of Famers. So I started doing interviews with people in February of 2020, and then COVID happened. And I put a button on it and discovered through another podcast I was producing, Star Wars Duel of the Fates, if you want to look it up. Through that, I discovered that you can record remotely like we're doing right now. And that just changed everything. So that fall, I started recording again. And in January, believe it or not, January of 2021, which is what, season 46 or something like that, 46, I think, I released the first of 5 pilot episodes. And each episode had 3 nominees on it. It would be one guest doing 3 nominees. And I didn't really have a format. I didn't know. I knew that people were going to vote at the end and elect the Hall of Fame. I didn't want that to be arbitrary. I didn't want that to be me. I wanted it to be elected, and I wanted it to be above a certain threshold to, ensure the integrity of the hall. I really wanted it to be make-believe and fun, and have other podcasts that were covering SNL discuss it, like offhandedly when they're talking about Chris Farley, the Hall of Famer, that sort of thing. After those 5 episodes, I did a postmortem on the show, and I was like, no, don't like this at all. Don't like what I'm doing. And I don't know what changed, but something changed that summer, and I ended up starting to record again. And that October of 2020, I guess from 2021. Yep. That October, I released what is now the SNL Hall of Fame. And it had 1 nominee per episode with guests of varying lengths, because back in the day, I used to connect with the guest and we would record 3 nominees. Like Thomas might remember, I basically came to people and said, give me 1 cast member, 1 host, and then either 1 musical guest or writer. And Thomas chose musical guest. He chose Nirvana. I'm not sure if you remember but you chose Nirvana that year.
Mhm.
You had
Chris Farley.
Hold on. Chris Farley and Emma Stone.
Emma Stone.
Yes,
Yep.
that's right.
And we sat down and recorded. Didn't we record like all three in just kind of one shot?
Oh, did you really?
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah,
I remember.
Then I would cut it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of work to like listen to like a 2-hour episode, right?
I can imagine like listening to Thomas for 2 hours is a lot of work, JD. You're right.
Doing
Bless
God's
you,
work
JD.
up there in Canada, JD. God's work.
I'm not arguing with Gary about that. Bless you, JD, for that.
Hey, listen. This is where it all comes to scratch, because at the end of season 1, I did another postmortem and I was like, no, I still don't like this. And then it hit me. The thing that I didn't like was me. And so I fired me. At that time, I wasn't doing conversations. Thomas brought that to the table. Thomas was like, I really want this to be conversational. And had I had that thought, you wouldn't have been hired, because that's brilliant. That's how it should be. And I was approaching it more journalistically, or more like, I'm the curator of the Hall of Fame. And I wanted to know all the minutia and facts and figures. And I had a spreadsheet and it had tons of stuff on it. And then I realized that I don't have a short-term memory. So, I sucked as that style of interviewer. And I have since started doing conversational podcasts, and they're great. I just got picked up by Sirius Satellite Radio today.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, like it was official today. Official. So, but at the end of that season, I was like, no, this isn't working. So I fired myself. And then I had to do sort of where do I go? Because I liked the show this year. I just didn't like me. And I thought back to the Thomas situation, and we'll pick that up another.
Well, I was going to say, before we get into how the show evolved, the one thing I will say you have kept doing, for anybody who hasn't listened, is you are still kind of the ringleader of the SNL Hall of Fame. And every episode you give the rundown, not to put you on the spot, but again, for any of our listeners who might not know, can you just kind of break down what the hall is, the categories, and how the format of the show and how you do it? Basically I'm trying to fish out that like 30-second blurb you do every episode.
You know what? I'm sitting here right now and I'm pulling that up. That's so funny that you just said that. The SNL Hall of Fame podcast is a weekly affair where each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer, and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once these nominees have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to help decide who will be enshrined for perpetuity inside the hall. And that's how we play the game. It's just that simple.
That, and make sure to wipe your feet. And I think we've covered it all. All right.
Yeah, pretty much. I always wanted to be a disc jockey growing up. That was like my dream, a cartoonist or a disc jockey. And one of the cool things I thought about disc jockeys, and also my first favorite cast member on SNL in history, was Dennis Miller. And he had a catchphrase. And I love the idea of catchphrases. And so all my podcasts have a catchphrase of some sort. And for whatever reason, Wipe Your Feet just became this thing. And I thought I could have like a Simpsons-esque gag that I could say something about every week. But I think, after like 4 episodes, it's like, what the hell can you say about wiping your feet? So now it's just become Wipe Your Feet, unless I have something clever that I come up with. Yeah. So then, Thomas took over, and the show really started to morph that year into what it actually is. We added Matt Ardell to do some trivia off the top to get that sort of out of the way so it could be a more SNL focused conversation. We had a little bit of crossover the first season, but we fixed that up. I thought we did that really well. And season 2, that was the end of season 2. And then Thomas was there right through season 6. And that's when we had decided to sort of put a button on things.
So one of the things that I find fascinating that you did, JD, and you spoke about this briefly, but you decided to kind of follow Hall of Fame rules from the Baseball Hall of Fame, right? That's where you get your percentages from, and how it takes What does it take to get into the Hall of Fame? I'm sorry, I know this, but
it's okay. It's because to be honest, it's fluctuated a little bit over.
Okay.
The years. It's now 66, solid 66, right? It was 66 and 2/3 at one point. I think we said, to be fussy, but I think we had an instance of somebody getting like 6.2 or something like that, and it was like, this guy has to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
it was an executive decision, I suppose you'll say.
Well, and you also did a really good thing, in my opinion, of saying, not just cast members, but also let's acknowledge hosts and writers and musical guests. And that's kind of, that fleshes out the entire show, really.
Yeah, I thought so. Initially, I thought we would get into like production designers and, like I had, again, this spreadsheet and I was just looking at people's tenures and, like somebody like Eugene Lee is probably a Hall of Famer, but not a lot of people would know about that person. And I don't know a whole lot. And that might be a fascinating episode to, what would you call it? A dream scenario in the future, perhaps, might be something to look at. But I thought it was really important. It's a variety show, and I've done sketch comedy. We produced 4 or 5 shows with a large ensemble, and the one director I had ran the show like he had worked with Richard Pryor on a Richard Pryor show. I forget which one, probably Pryor's Place or something, but he ran it like a writer's room. And so we had to write, and you learned quickly that you had to like either be really strong with character work or impressions, or learn how to write for somebody else who does that well. And I found that person and I started writing, and I really gained a deep respect for writers. And then musical guests, it doesn't seem like it's the case as much anymore. And you guys can correct me because I'm pretty square at this point, but it doesn't seem to me that acts come on and break the same way they might have. And like for my full tenure of the SNL watch, it feels like the first 20 years, a lot sort of did, or they came on right at their peak. And to me, musical guests were very important. I very rarely skip musical guests. And I'm not going to say that I skip them all the time now, but if they don't grab me, it's going to be sandwich time,
I feel like musical guests are still important. I think of Sabrina Carpenter. I think SNL caught her like right when she was breaking, and all of a sudden I started seeing Sabrina Carpenter all over the place. I think they've caught acts like Dua Lipa at exactly the right time. So now it's just kind of pop acts the last few years that they're just really catching at the perfect moment. It's just sort of music, and I'm probably with you, JD. We listen to a lot of the same music, so it's probably music that we don't quite connect with totally, but I think they are catching a lot of pop acts, and maybe Bill can have a lot of insight on this too, as far as like Sabrina Carpenter for some reason is like the first thing that comes to my mind is where I think SNL caught her at the perfect time.
Sabrina, Billie Eilish back in 2019. I mean, that was huge.
Big one.
I'm still much a fan of pop music, and maybe it's because I have a teenage daughter. Maybe it's because I feel like comedy and music are the two things that keep you from getting old, in my opinion. So being still in the music of it all, I very rarely don't listen to the musical guests, just because I think it is still very important. But to JD's point, I think it was very different in the first 20, 25 years, where you would get a Nirvana, about a month before they were about to explode. That kind of thing. I don't know that we get that quite as much, other than the examples we've just given. But I think it's still super important. And the way they've changed the direction of the show, where it's much more of a spectacle. It was in front of a brick wall for the first 30 years, no matter who it was. And then people like Kanye, Billie Eilish changed that. And we've seen where that's gone now, where somebody like Olivia Rodrigo goes on and crawls on a table and smashes cake. And it's like, oh, okay, people are going to be talking about this tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the whole entire music industry has changed too, right? And you see that reflected
Absolutely.
in the type of artists that you get on the show now.
Well, so JD told us his side of the story of how, Thomas, you got into the show. Tell us your format. Where were you at when you got the call? Had you been podcasting before, and how, just kind of your side of how you took over things?
So I have a background in radio. So I was like a disc jockey on the FM and AM. So I did all sorts of stuff in radio. I worked in radio from 1999 to 2007. I worked in radio in the 90s. Kids, that's how old I am. I did various things in radio. Started doing on air. I actually was a DJ for a pop music station in Albuquerque for a summer. I did sports updates, like local sports updates during the Jim Rome show. I hosted like sports talk shows and things like that too. But that had been since 2007. So throughout the years, I'd had the broadcasting itch. I'd half-assed talked to friends about, hey, we should start a podcast, and it never went anywhere. We didn't have a good idea for a podcast. I think it was around 2020, probably 2021, maybe. I was following the SNL Stats, which became Saturday Night Network, and they put out a call to people to fans. You want to take part in a trivia show? Do you want to be part of a trivia team? So I submitted my name and said why I wanted to do that, and I ended up getting put on the show. It was Bill Kenney was actually on the show, so that was my first basically broadcasting experience in, I don't know, 14, 15 years at that point, but I still had the itch. So Rebecca North was on my team. There are some other people. Nicole Rovine might have been part of that show too. So I'm like, oh, that was so much fun. And I looked on Reddit on the Saturday night at the Live from New York subreddit, and JD had kind of put a call out to fans saying, hey, if you're interested in maybe talking about anybody on my podcast, SNL Hall of Fame, let me know. So I sent him a private message, told him some of the names that I'd be interested in, and he took a shot. He took a chance on me, and the rest was history. I did those 3 episodes: Farley, Nirvana, Emma Stone, the first season, and I really got reinvigorated as far as broadcasting. Like, this is so much fun. I started going on John Schneider's on the Saturday Night Network a little bit more, but I was surprised when JD reached out to me and basically told me that he fired himself. I think those were the words that he used with me too. He's like, I'm firing myself from my own podcast. And he asked me, would you maybe be interested in taking over and doing the conversations? So I was like, yeah, I think I could do it. Like, I've been wanting to do it. So I should kind of put my money where my mouth is and give this a shot. So I owe JD a lot as far as helping me scratch that broadcasting itch and giving me my new favorite hobby now, which is podcasting, which is like a monkey's paw. Now I'm so busy with podcasting, I'm like, oh my god, I don't have time for anything else. But no, JD, that was an awesome surprise when I got the call from the bullpen.
And before we get to the final season, a question for the 3 of you guys again. JD has done 1 season, Bill's done 1 season, Thomas, you had 5 in the middle. Question to all of you: any conversations, particular episodes that really stand out that you guys either really liked, really proud of, really surprised about what you learned? Let's throw it to all 3 of you guys.
I mean, I will say overall, the most enjoyable part has been, most of the people I've talked to, I've known before from various podcasts. I consider everybody friends. And but the fun part has been, when we go on a roundtable on the Saturday Night Network and you're on there with 3 or 4 people, there's a lot of different conversations going on. To have that one-on-one has been really rewarding to talk to some of the people, get to know people a little bit deeper, as you did talk about, different SNL cast members, hosts, musical guests, and writers. So that's been a lot of fun. So I don't know that there's a particular episode, but I would say that is the biggest part for me.
Man, I agree with Bill. Like, I've made so many friends throughout this. Like, I'm looking at my, I have spreadsheets galore, and I have a workflow spreadsheet. So I'm looking at each tab's a season. So I'm looking at all the guests that I've been able to talk to, and I've made so many friends throughout. I met my podcast, my Pop Culture 5 podcasting co-host through SNL Hall of Fame. He reached out to us and had an idea to do Dick Ebersol, and we vetted his podcast and invited him on, and then all of a sudden, he's my co-host on a new podcast. So I echo Bill's sentiments there. I think the Dave Grohl episode from season 2 that I did with Ryan McNeil really unlocked something as far as the style that I wanted to bring to the show. And I had been experimenting here and there with how to do the show, certain segments that didn't stick, so just different types of things. But that Dave Grohl episode really unlocked something where I'm like, oh, this is something that I can repeat. This is like a replicable kind of thing. And it was the perfect storm of the right guest, great topic, and me kind of finding the format and finding what I wanted to do with this. So that's still probably to this day. I've had so many great episodes and guests, but to this day, probably that Dave Grohl episode's still my favorite. And then learning about people like Herb Sargent, for instance. I didn't really know much about Herb Sargent before I started doing the prep for his season 3 episode. Being able to, Julio Torres was another one where I knew he was quality, but just that was so much fun to delve in. So we know the big names, but it's those kind of niche kind of names that I've had so much fun delving into.
Like the Alan Zweibel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I absolutely loved that episode, Gary.
Oh, I wasn't fishing. I was just fishing for a name that people wouldn't know. I forgot that I did that episode.
Convenient.
Yeah.
I had to look. I'm like, did you? No. I know Gary. No, Gary wasn't fishing for.
No, not at all.
But the Alan Zweibel is a good example of someone who some of those I don't want to say smaller, but the lesser talked about nominees. Sometimes those are the most fun ones to do.
Well, I think, and oftentimes those are the writers, right? The people don't know the writers, especially historically, but what you guys have done to bring a lot of those names to light has been great.
Oh, thanks. That's really cool. For me, I put out a call, like Thomas was saying, I put out a call for guests, and I used to do a mental health podcast. And so I had a contact who was like, I've got a friend who's an SNL nut, and you have to have her on your podcast. And so she sent an email introducing the two of us. And in season 1, the second half of the season, I'm not sure exactly when, it was in the winter, we talked about John Mulaney for an hour, and that was with then Kirsten Turnbull, but now the SNN's famous Kirsten Rajala. And we just had a great time, and I was just blown away right away. It was she's from a podcast guest perspective, and this goes to Thomas as well. When you bring research plus passion, a podcast is relatively easy to do in that regard. It's when you do the opposite that it gets very difficult. So that was just a great lot of fun. And I forget what we nominated him for, whether that was writer or host at that time.
Mulaney,
probably
I think
writer,
it was
he didn't get in.
Host first.
I think
and then
he did.
we pivoted to writer. Yeah. Well, you mentioned
She's
Kirsten, but kind of, she's awesome. But doing it over my 5 seasons, I wanted to kind of turn the guests into almost like characters or kind of people who
Iron Chef.
I like recurring guests, so people get to know the people, it's like, oh, we're bringing back Ryan McNeil, we're bringing back Jamie Burwood. Like, the listeners kind of get to know these names. So I always thought it was good to like, hey, let's bring people back. Like, let's have John Schneider come and advocate for Kristen Wiig, and let's have the same voices. So I thought that was important to kind of turn the guests into almost like characters in the show, I think.
Well, yeah. And what that does, which is really incredible, is it does sort of world build.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You've got these, like you said, you've got these reoccurring characters, and now this pretend make believe thing is actually pretended make believe, and we can talk about it that way. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And no offense to Bill, Brad, Gary, any of my other guests, but I'm just reminded, like, the coolest guest, and I have to thank JD for his connections with this opportunity, but my coolest conversation was in season 6. I got to talk to Robin.
That was a great one.
For an hour about Joe Piscopo, who she worked with so closely. They were in the Winers. They were on the same cast. And Robin Duke was the nicest person. Like, she was amazing. We actually had a really good chats before and after recording. So it wasn't just like get on and then let's do it and then, leave the recording. Like, I got a chance to talk to her before and after. She was super nice, had a lot of great things to say about Joe. I wanted to give her a chance to talk about her work on SNL as well. Even though we weren't nominating her, I wanted to give her room to talk about her experiences and her work, and then she and Joe. And I just love how that episode came together, and a lot of it was because of Robin and just how great she was as a guest.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was great to have a different perspective from your other normal guests.
Yeah, right.
And back to that idea of the normal guest, I got to say, that's a great point, because as you go on farther into the seasons and you start to get away from names like Belushi and Farley and Dana Carvey, when you started to get those lesser known SNL names, it was fun to listen to, because you knew the people you were talking to. Oh, Kirsten's coming back. Oh, Ryan's coming back. So you kind of knew what your guests were. And so you would actually listen not only for the person that was being nominated, but who was doing the nomination. Like, it was fun to get those guests back.
Thomas and Sammy are going to subject the listener to an hour on Vanessa Bayer, whether they like it or not.
That's a great episode. I have a fond memory of listening to that on a train ride through Scotland. And it's just
the Vanessa Bayer episode.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I love that. I think she's Hall of Fame caliber, but it was almost one where I was like, she's my favorite cast member. I know she's basically Sammy's favorite. And I'm like, who else am I going to bring on but Sammy? And we're just going to geek out. And I hope that's fun for the listener. I think it was, but that was like a really like one for me kind of episode, that like a truly special
But
one.
I think that episode in particular speaks to what JD said about the passion, right? And I think a lot of your guests, and you guys as well, have this passion for it. So the excitement that's created just in the conversations that you have really comes through and makes it entertaining when your guests are really pushing for these people to get into this Hall of Fame. So it's fun. It creates great conversations.
Yeah, we really try to curate the guests and match them up to the nominee. That's not by, and I noticed this last season 7, I noticed Bill made sense. Like, everybody that he brought on, I'm like, oh yeah. Like, I loved Andy Hoagland coming on to talk about Eminem. Like that, like that match. That was like a match made in heaven. That was perfect. I think Bill's done a great job of curating the lineup for season 7 too.
Oh, totally. I'm sure we'll get to season 7. But one of my favorite episodes in recent time has been season 7, Bill, when you had actually Thomas on talking about Aerosmith. It's because it's two people that I love to talk to and I love to hear talk, and then talking about, I happen to be an Aerosmith fan, but I actually forgot about some of the performances, and it was like I just like reinvigorated my love for that band, getting a chance to listen to you guys talk an hour about them. It's one of my favorite episodes of the last few seasons.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, having Thomas back so soon and getting to talk. I think going into the season, one of the things I was most nervous about was talking about the musical guests, because it's not as objective as, looking at a host or a cast member or even a writer. People have very different opinions about music. And I was like, how are we going to get? So I went back and listened to a lot of Thomas's work with musical guests from previous seasons leading up to that. And, he was the perfect person to come back for that first musical guest that was nominated for this season. And it was a lot of fun, like getting to talk about that. I'm very passionate about music. These guys have both said that they started in radio broadcasting. I started in radio broadcasting all the way back in the 80s, kids. So it was my first job. It was something that kind of sat dormant in me as I went through 6 different careers. And to be able to come back and talk about music on a podcast was a lot of fun. And Thomas was great.
It was so much fun being in the guest chair, as opposed to I didn't have to worry about reining things in or keeping things moving. I just got to sit there and like derail Bill and try to watch him bring us back.
Did you give him notes? Like, I wouldn't have said it like that, but anyway.
That was interesting. That's an interesting. Afterward, I told Bill that was an interesting way of doing that show.
There's a reason you were on
really
late
like your
in the
approach
season.
to this, Bill.
A little abstract approach to it, huh, Bill?
Well, let's talk about that, Thomas. Your decision to move away and to have Bill. How did that all come to be? That you decided to step away and Bill to move into the host chair for this season?
I think a lot of it was life stuff, just kind of things that were starting to coalesce. I had mentioned the other podcast, Pop Culture 5, which was kind of a brainchild, just kind of started from scratch. So I started devoting a lot of time to that, something that we basically, Jeremy and I, created from scratch, and we started seeing that grow a little bit. I started moving too. My wife and I have been moving for like the last 6 months. We move out of our house, put our other house on the market. We're in between homes. Things are in 4 different storage places. We've been moving since November. So that started getting busy, and just kind of things in life started coalescing. So I'm like, oh man, like this is, I try to, and when I do SNL Hall of Fame, I put a lot of work into it. I did a lot of prep. I do a lot of stuff. I do a little how the sausage is made. I still do this. I hung around to do editing and production and all the audio clips that you'll hear during the show. I'm still kind of behind that and putting the shows together in that capacity. But I just got really busy, and I'm like, yeah, I think I might have to talk to JD and send in my resignation. But I wanted to find my replacement though. So I was kind of like thinking, racking my brain, like who would be the perfect people to replace me? And I got my number one. The guy who replaced me was like my number one target who I was recruiting to replace me. So that's basically what happened. But I kind of got my wish in my replacement.
And how for you, Bill, how did this work out, and how did you feel about Thomas laying this on you?
Yeah, I the first thing I said to these guys was, am I now the Ted McGinley of the SNL Hall of Fame? Bring me in the last season of The Love Boat, and, what the hell are we still doing here? And who the hell is this guy? Like, what happened to Fonzie? But they calmed my concerns about that. I was honored to even be considered. I had actually, JD, I don't know if you remember this. The first time I came on with you, we did this epic 3.5-hour live roundtable after season 1. It was me, you, John Schneider, Nicole Rovine, and Andy Dick. And we went through our list, and it was, wow. It went on forever. Golden tongue awards for all of us after that one. Absolutely. But and then I started going on with Thomas, and I got to talk about some really great people like Jan Hooks, my best friend Robert Schmeigel. So I thought, yeah, this could be a lot of fun, and to mix it in with doing the work at Saturday Night Network, it seemed kind of a logical step to be able to go. As I said, the reward of being able to talk to these people one-on-one has been fantastic. But yeah, I was really excited to do it, even though it was going to be the final season.
And how was that decision made, JD, to make this the final season?
Well, from the very beginning, I decided I wanted to curate the nominees. I wanted to take a look at, a breadth so that we could have a show that was, potentially it would grab different segments of an audience, right? Like a Dana Carvey would be somebody like me, but a Kate McKinnon's going to be somebody. Well, it would be me too, but somebody a little younger and more hip, potentially.
That's a good response,
by
the way, for somebody like Brad, who was mad that we didn't have John Belushi right away on season 1. And we got a podcast to do. We got to, we have to like space the big ones out a little bit,
stagger it,
because we got a podcast to do. This is a show to do.
If it were up to Brad, though, Belushi would have gotten in like Lauren, no votes.
Yeah, him and Lauren would have just been walked right through. Doors open. Come on in, fellas.
Yeah. Wipe your feet first, though.
It was actually to spite Brad that we waited to season 3 to put Belushi on.
Yeah, and now that you know Brad, you wish you had waited until season 7,
until season 6, 7. Yeah,
this all tracks.
So the truth is every year there's like and Thomas and Bill would both agree. Every year there's sort of tent poles, and we try to stack the beginning and the end of the season with those tent poles, and to do that you have to sort of go through the history, and basically, after 7 seasons, 15 nominees a season, 30 in the first season, basically, it would be irresponsible of us to come out there and nominate, I don't want to besmirch anybody, but person blank. You can look at your spreadsheet and determine.
I'll besmirch Rob Schneider. I didn't want to get to doing.
That's a
fair point.
So yeah, that was sort of like, let's wrap it up. And I'm glad that we stuck with it, because I knew that I wanted to end at season 7 when Thomas, submitted his resignation note. And funny side note is Thomas went and got Bill, asked Bill. But I actually reached out to Thomas as well after the fact. I didn't know that he had reached out to Bill and was like, I really think maybe Bill Kenney for your replacement. And you were like, well, actually,
that's great.
I've already got him. Yeah.
And so let's bring us up to now this final season. Earlier this week, you guys put out an episode about Cecily Strong. Kirsten's back. This is the final one, right? Final episode of the season, or am I wrong?
There will be a Don Pardo episode, and then there'll be a round table, and then there'll be the finale.
Okay, so Cecily is the last nominee for season.
But the last nominee.
It's a really cool full circle thing with Kirsten coming back and being that final guest. That's really cool. Can you guys tell us where we're at, how voting works? I know it's a little different this season. Normally there's a cap on votes and who you can vote for. So hopefully people are digging this and want to go back and listen. I just want you guys to take a minute and explain how the voting process is for this final season.
The voting process this year, like you mentioned, is capless, so that we can potentially get some people in that deserve to get in that maybe have only been on the ballot for 1 or 2 years. Because it's funny, just like a sports Hall of Fame, there are people that sort of get in at a number, and Thomas and Bill and I can like look at that number and go, yeah, they're probably going to get in next year or the year following. And that's not going to be the case after this year. So we'd like to get as many people in as we can, maybe even as many as season 3. The Bizarro season. So then there's also a floor. There's the no ceiling this year, but there is a floor of 5. Yeah, you have to cast at least 5 because it's just silly when people cast a ballot with 1 person on it or no people on it, which has happened one time. So that's how the voting works. Voting opens on May 8th. No, not the 18th. Yeah, next Monday. Yeah, voting will open next Monday, which is the 18th.
19th.
And 19th. Sorry. Thank you very much. It's a holiday here in Canada, even, and I didn't remember. Never mind.
What holiday is it, JD?
It's Victoria Day, where we celebrate Queen Elizabeth's mother, Victoria.
What do you do?
Bizarre.
What do you do for Victoria Day?
You go camping because it's
fun.
the beginning of summer. It's the beginning of okay, we made it through another winter, you know?
Let's go camping and celebrate. Oh, that's great.
That's right.
I pick JD's brain about Canadian stuff, so don't mind me.
So you'll go to a website, or there are people, we do have an email list, and those people on the email list will get a link to a Google form. The Google form will also be shared on all our social, which at this point is really just Instagram, and a little bit of Facebook. And Bill's been doing it to Blue Sky as well. So I will say that there's some Blue Sky content out there as well for you Blue Skyers. And voting will end on May 30th. And we'll then tabulate the ballots and announce the class on a live episode on the Monday. And that'll be where we turn out the lights for the last time.
That's awesome. So that's a lot of fun. That's a lot going on in the next few weeks or month.
Yeah.
So now you guys know who the nominees are that have not made it in yet. You know what the ballots look like. Let's go around and each of you just give me 3 to 5 people that you really want to see get in.
So I think one of my main things coming into this, and I think it might be less of an issue because there's no cap on the voting, but a lot of people talk about recency bias in that sometimes recency bias works in favor of somebody who's real recent, but I don't think that's the case. Like Kate McKinnon didn't get in. She was on the ballot season 6 and she didn't get in. And I think that was recency bias working against Kate McKinnon. So I'd like to see people give the recent cast members and writers and whatnot a chance. So I like Kate, Adie, and Cecily are all on the ballot, and I don't want to see recency work against them. They're all-time great cast members, even if they were just on the show. They're still all-time great cast members. So I'd like to see recent cast members and writers and whatnot get their due. One name, kind of out of the box name that I think is Hall of Fame caliber and has the material to back it up, that I would just love to see. It would tickle me if Julio Torres got in, because it's just the sheer amount of just amazing output in maybe even such a short period of time that Julio did when he was a writer, just for a handful of seasons, was just extraordinary. So I would actually really love if Julio Torres got in. So those are some of my main ones there.
I thought you were going to say Vanessa Bayer, but you surprised us.
Well, that's obvious. I mean, everybody, I don't want to.
I know.
I'm not going to waste airtime
Vanessa
on it.
Bayer.
Everybody knows I want Vanessa Bayer.
But since Gary pulled my string, please vote for Vanessa Bayer. She deserves it. Top 20 cast member of all time. Go check the tape. Go watch the sketches, the update stuff. So yes, Vanessa Bayer.
Thanks, Thomas. Bill, how about you? Who do you have?
I will go in the complete opposite direction of Thomas, just because I think people like Garrett and Lorraine have been getting more of their due over the last, maybe 10 years or so. They both had prominent roles in SNL 50, which was beautiful to see. So I would love to see them, get the props that they deserve. And then, a lot of the writers, we've talked about this so much about, unless it's a name like Conan or Mulaney, people don't pay attention. And part of that is ignorance as far as not knowing who made what all the way back when. But what some of these people have done over the course of time, if you have a favorite sketch, that writer is probably on this ballot or already in the Hall of Fame. So vote for writers.
And JD, how about you?
I'd love to see a contemporary music act get in, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I just don't think maybe Eminem. I was going to say the musical side of the ballot just might not be strong enough at this point. But aside from that, I was somebody who was going to come out and stump for Cecily. I think that she's wonderful, and she was on 11 seasons, I believe. Hall of Famer. Like we talk about on the water cooler sometimes, this trifecta, and I got to think of 2 more things because it would be cool to have a 5-tool cast member. But a stint on Update, characters and impressions, and
throwing arm, and
speed. Yeah.
And I think Cecily has all 5 of those.
I think writing should be one of them. Like you're able to write for yourself or whatever, but yes. And then
singing.
Speed.
That's
and
a good
speed.
one.
Oh, and
Singing. That's a good one. Yeah.
There you go.
She has that.
It's a 5-tool cast member.
Yeah. That's good.
So, I'd love to see her get in.
Brad, is there anyone you want to stump for while we're here?
I mean, selfishly, we've been on the show, you and I, Gary, a few times. Just anybody I've nominated. I do think Chevy deserves to get in. I think, he's really important to the success of the show. And Lovitz, 2 cast members that I got to talk to in the last couple of years. I think Lovitz and Chevy, and I agree with the guys' writers, especially the old writers, Rosie Schuster, Zweibel, Schiller, Beats, any of them. Would love to see them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You, Gary?
I was going to say Zweibel, selfishly, and also Lovitz. I think, you did the Lovitz show, and
Love it.
Really, he's someone that was really important to me. So,
and Piscopo, actually, Thomas, you mentioned it was a great conversation you had with Robin, but I think he needs his due. I think Piscopo is another one should get in.
Yeah, good call on Lovitz, by the way. Truly, that was one of my favorite episodes that I've done. That was one of my Brad.
God.
Like, I'm not just saying that because you're my favorite and you were on, but that was one of my handful of favorite episodes.
We laughed so hard that episode.
Yeah, that was so fun, so much fun. I just love John Lovitz, and I know I got the perfect person to talk about him. So good call on Lovitz from you both.
We're winding up here. You guys know we're big fans. It shouldn't surprise you that we're not your only fans. So bear with us. We have a little something for you guys.
Hi there. This is Jamie Burwood, and I want to say a big congrats and thank you to the SNL Hall of Fame crew as you all wrap up your final season. I had a blast each time I came onto the podcast, from the very first time, which I think was for Molly Shannon, up until some of the more recent seasons. You guys always found a way to keep the shows really fun, unique, and fresh. It was just so much fun to be a part of it. Wishing you all the best. Cheers.
Okay, this is Jeremy Dove, co-host of Pop Culture 5 with Thomas Sena. And what can I say about the SNL Hall of Fame? A podcast that, in all reality, has given me so much. I think about when I first saw this podcast and I was hooked and I wanted to be a part of it because I felt like I found a group of people who think like me, who love to talk and break down SNL and the analytics of it and the importance of this cultural institution. And I felt like I found the tribe. And I'm so beyond grateful for Jamie, Thomas, Matt, Bill. You guys have given us an amazing podcast for all these years. And I've loved being able to come on and just chat with everyone. And as sad as I am that you guys are ending, I'm so appreciative and I can't thank you guys enough, because I can honestly say this podcast has been a game changer and a life changer for me. So thank you guys, and job well done. So thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Bill. You guys have done an amazing job.
JD and team, it's Andy Hoagland from the SNL Review Experience. Wanted to congratulate you folks on the high caliber product you put out. Such a high concept, not easy to do, which is why I'm honored to officially induct the SNL Hall of Fame into the SNL Podcast Hall of Fame. You are the charting member. Congratulations.
Greetings and salutations. It's Ryan McNeil from the matinee.ca sending a little well wish out to all of you lovely weirdos at the SNL Hall of Fame, listeners, contributors, certainly the hosts and proprietors of this fantastic project that I was so lucky to get to take part in so many times. I really, really loved becoming the music guy, and championing bands and singers that never stood a chance at getting into the Hall of Fame. But it was always just so much fun to nerd out about all of the amazing performances, both cast, host, and absolutely the music that I grew up with and loved on this absolute icon of television. I am going to miss listening. I'm going to miss being a part of it, and I'm going to miss all of you. So thank you for this amazing project. Thank you for asking me to be part of it. And just thank you. Peace and love. Be well, everybody. Treat each other well. And as always, justice for Prince.
Hi, SNL Hall of Fame team. Kirsten here with a huge congrats and thank you for all that you've done for the SNL fan community. To JD, Thomas, Bill, Matt, and everyone behind the scenes. It's been amazing to dissect and analyze and laugh about all our favorite SNL moments. I'm so thrilled I got to be a part of it. And I will truly cherish all these memories that we've created talking about something we all love so much. Thank you, and I'll see you at the after party.
Hey, everybody, this is Darren Patterson from the SNL Nerds. Just saying goodbye to the SNL Hall of Fame. How do you say goodbye to such an institution, a dynasty, the legacy this podcast leaves behind? How do you say goodbye to such an important piece of history? I tell you how. Through the majesty of song. I close my eyes only for a moment, and the moment's gone. All my dreams pass before my eyes with curiosity. Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind. Oh, you're my boy, SNL Hall of Fame.
There you go, fellas.
You're my boy.
Little something from all your friends.
Oh, wow.
Let you know how much.
Darren. Oh, thank you.
That is amazing.
That was
Thank you
awesome.
so much.
So great.
Oh my gosh, I loved it.
Yeah.
You guys, did you have to ask Jamie Burwood to take off her earrings to record that? No, there's a little inside joke between me and Jamie.
No, but I did have to edit out 2 more plugs for Pop Culture 5 from Jeremy.
Good.
We are gonna
That's
get
my guy right there.
the Pop Culture 5 bell on the Not Ready for Primetime Project. Every time it's mentioned, a bell will go off.
An angel gets its wings. Yes.
A podcast gets its plug. That's it.
I love it. I hear Darren's been taking notes from his guy, Garrett Morris. Darren was on the Garrett Morris episode with me, so he's been taking inspiration as far as singing from Garrett. Good job, man.
Brad put the call out to people, and I think he immediately got folks writing back to him saying, yes, let me get this over to you, because so many people enjoy what you guys have done. So thank you.
Yeah,
I think it's really apparent when we get so many people to reply to us so quickly asking for that. So that's a testament to you guys and what you've done.
Well, that's a big wow for me. Like, wow. Holy.
We talk a lot about community around here, the SNL community, and you guys are a huge part of it. And I can say firsthand, we can say firsthand from our podcast, we had Thomas was a guest on our season 1. When we started getting more guests season 2, we reached out to Thomas and who else should we get? Who would be great guests? And we've had Bill on and Thomas on a bunch now. So it's it's you guys, especially personally, have been very embracing, and we owe a lot of our success to you guys because we couldn't have done what we do without leaning on you guys. So personally, we want to say thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is amazing, all the different crossover from different podcasts. And, as I said at the top, all the friends and people you feel like if you saw them, if you were in their city, you'd go have a beer with them for sure. And it's really great to have expanded the universe into so many different podcasts. And props again to JD for coming up with this. being a guest and now being the conversationalist, it's really been a treat. So thanks for your brainchild.
Now, what a really neat community that is. So Darren, SNL Nerds podcast, we have a lot of collaboration with the Saturday Night Network. John Schneider's done an amazing thing there. We just recently got a chance on the Not Ready for Primetime Project to talk to Catherine Coleman, who is one of the co-hosts of the SNL After Party. So I love that this little community, we're not like competitive with each other necessarily. It's all just love, and it's all crossover, and we all feel a niche in the SNL podcasting and fan sphere. So I love all that community.
Except for you, Andy Dick.
Ooh, shots fired.
Andrew Dick.
Gary, cue the music.
He was, oh man, Andy Dick. Yes, he was great on Jane Curtin.
He was.
How did I forget Andy Dick? He was our guest on Jane Curtin.
Well, guys, I don't know. We don't have anyone else to say thank you to you. So, Brad.
No, thank you guys. Like, I think, I said it all. I remember I called Gary a couple weeks ago, and you guys it dawned on me that it was finally ending. And I said, hey, what do you think? We get the guys on and just say thank you and shine the light. So that's all we wanted to do, was say thanks and everything you guys have done.
I think one of the really like final things I want to get across is I love like the Hall of Fame concept is amazing, and JD, just like, thank you so much for building it and for thinking of the idea. And I love that not only do we have like a Hall of Fame, but there's just so many great conversations, just time, like capsules. So I think this is an evergreen podcast.
Yes.
Even though kind of the goal is to like nominate someone for the Hall of Fame, 10 years from now, somebody could go back and listen to, I don't know, the Adam Driver, or that's maybe a bad example because he's probably going to host a bunch more times. They could go back and listen to the Alan Zweibel episode, listen to the Bobby Moynihan episode, and that's just such a cool capsule of SNL. I want to let's find out about Danny DeVito and his time hosting in like a 1 hour or so chunk of time. And we have so many of those capsules of SNL history. I just think even more so than who made the Hall of Fame and who didn't, is just that like we have those conversations about SNL that live on forever with this podcast.
Totally.
Yeah. That's a really great point, Thomas. Well, as we wrap up, I just want to give you guys a moment to plug anything else. I'll plug Pop Culture 5 so that
it's a Thomas and Jeremy Does podcast. They do it together. It's really great. I love it. Check it out. Subscribe, like, and review.
But JD, you have other podcasts that you've done, other stuff that you're actually doing. So once the SNL Hall of Fame, you post the last show there, what have you got going on that you want to promote?
I'm in the thick of, there's a Canadian band that never broke in the US, and it's a mystery to everyone in Canada because they could sell out arenas here, back and forth across the country every year. And they were called the Tragically Hip, and they actually showed up on season 20. And it was a lot of fun to see them and then to not have them break even after that. But so I have a podcast that's counting down their top 40 songs for their 40th anniversary. Now, they're not a band anymore because their lead singer tragically passed away of glioblastoma, brain cancer, in 2017. And he was the legend in this country. You can tell because his name was frickin' Gord. Very Canadian name, Gord. So at any rate, this podcast, like the SNL Hall of Fame, and I learned this from my friend Thomas, I built this concept, sort of a high concept, that I was going to talk to somebody about their hipstery and, get their origin story with the band, and then reveal the song on the countdown and then talk about the song. And I initially thought this is going to be great. People are going to water cooler this, blah, 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 blah. They're going to bitch and moan about the numbers and, that sort of thing. And within 2 episodes, it became of me recording, it became completely apparent to me that I was dead wrong. And it was the stories that I was hearing and the stories that were really compelling. And strangely enough, those are the emails that I get from listeners. They love the stories. And so that's my project right now. And that all leads up to a big fundraiser for ALS in October, October 4th. You can get more information if you want to at Duvre, DEWVRE.com/TTH Top 40. And if you want to make a donation to the ALS Society of Canada, you can do that. You can do that there. You can buy tickets to the event. And that is a show that you can now listen to on Sirius XM. So there you go.
That's awesome. Bill, how about you? Is there anything you want to plug?
Yeah, just make sure that you're listening to these final episodes of the SNL Hall of Fame. We're going to have a great Pardo Award coming up next week, and then the final roundtable to discuss, which Thomas will be joining me on for one last button on everything on the SNL Hall of Fame. And, of course, you can find me at the Saturday Night Network. We're wrapping up season 50, and John Schneider and I will be doing a summer series again this year of the 50 greatest episodes in SNL history. I'm sure you'll all join us at some point, so make sure you check that out. That'll be every Monday night during the summer starting on June 9th.
Awesome. That's a heavy lift, Bill. Yeah. Thomas, how about you? Do you have anything to plug?
Nothing? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
go back.
Sorry, we're out of time.
Sorry.
Thanks for joining us.
Jeez. God, go back and listen to the Pop Culture 5 episodes, Elton John and Quentin Tarantino episodes. Those are 2 of the best ones.
They actually.
Oh,
that's
thank
true.
you.
It's a good point.
No, guys, this was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
We're glad we could talk to you about the SNL Hall of Fame and celebrate everything you've done. So for everyone that's listened, thank you all for it.
Yes, any of our people who haven't listened, please go check it out. Vote, sign up, get into vote for all these old timers that we want to get in there and the writers. I feel like our audience really appreciates those kind of lesser known or behind the scenes people. So, and then go back and start listening to all those episodes you haven't listened to, because they're great conversations.
Except for season 1. Skip it.
No. This isn't Parks and Recreation. You got to stay with season 1, do the whole catalog.
I'm that dude. I'm the dude from season 1.
No. I said this isn't
No,
Parks
that's fine.
and
That's fine.
Recreation.
No, you're the one saying you're that dude, JD. No one else is.
Yeah.
You're not Mark.
Mark, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, guys, this was a lot of fun. Thank you. And everyone, vote early and vote often.
Thanks for doing this.
No
guys.
worries.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Until next time, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow. Thanks for listening to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please take a moment to rate and review the project wherever you find us. You can also drop us a line to let us know what you liked or didn't and what else you might like to hear in the future at nr4ptproject@gmail.com. And lastly, you can find us on social media everywhere at nr4ptproject. Thanks again for listening. Have a pleasant tomorrow.
You want the best for your child. K-12 can help them gain the skills they need to reach their full potential while giving you the support you need to get them there. K-12-powered schools are tuition-free, accredited online public schools for students in kindergarten through 12th grade. Their state-certified teachers make online learning interactive and engaging, allowing your child to learn at their pace from the safety of home. Join the more than 3 million families who have chosen K-12. Go to k12.com/podcast today to learn more. That's k12.com/podcast.